In the glossy, sun-kissed world of old Hollywood, every star had a story. But for every tale told on the silver screen, there was another one hidden in the shadows, locked behind studio gates and whispered only in the most private circles. These were stories of lives lived in fear, of loves that could never be seen, and of a truth so risky it could shatter the carefully built facade of an entire industry. For decades, the public saw only what the studios wanted them to see: perfect smiles, glamorous romances, and heroic men. But as that golden age began to tarnish, some of its brightest stars, in their final years, started letting the truth slip out. One of the most explosive and enduring of these legends belongs to a man who was, for millions, the epitome of the all-American hero. He was the square-jawed cowboy, the handsome soldier, the man every woman supposedly wanted and every man wanted to be. His name was Guy Madison, and the secret he allegedly carried was a story of hidden romance with some of the most famous men in Hollywood. It's a story pieced together from unconfirmed accounts and Hollywood lore, a narrative that's never been officially verified but persists with a life all its own. This isn't just the story of one man's hidden life. It's a look into the crushing reality of an era where image was everything, and the truth was a price most stars couldn't afford to pay. He was born Robert Ozell Mosley on January 19, 1922, in a place called Pumpkin Center, California. The name alone sounds like something from a storybook, a wholesome rural start for a man who would become a national icon. Growing up near Bakersfield, his world was all about farm work and family, roping calves and breaking horses. His dad was a mechanic for the Santa Fe Railroad, and Robert's own dreams were pretty down to earth. He studied animal husbandry at Bakersfield College, hoping for a quiet life on a farm, not a life of fame and fortune. There was nothing about his early years that screamed Hollywood star. He was, by all accounts, a shy kid, much more comfortable in the open country than he ever would be in a crowd, but the world, it seems, had other plans. The outbreak of World War II put his quiet life on hold, and in 1942, he joined the U.S. Navy, serving as a radio operator in the Pacific. The war gave him a quiet discipline and a calm presence that would later define him on screen. It was during a weekend leave in 1944 that destiny finally came calling. While visiting Hollywood, his classic boy-next-door good looks caught the eye of Henry Wilson, the infamous head of talent for David O. Selznick's Vanguard Pictures. Wilson was a star maker known for his lineup of handsome young actors, and he saw pure, raw star power in the young sailor. He immediately gave Robert Mosley a brand new, much catchier name, Guy Madison. His first role was a blink and you'll miss it 3-minute part as a sailor in the 1944 film Since You Went Away. He barely said a word, but he didn't have to. The studio was instantly flooded with thousands of letters from fans, all asking the same question. Who was that handsome young man? An accidental star was born. Guy Madison's rise to fame was like a rocket. After finishing his service in the Navy, he came back to Hollywood to find he was already a sensation. RKO Studios quickly signed him, and even though critics initially wrote him off as just another pretty face, audiences couldn't get enough. He had a sincerity you couldn't fake, a warmth and humility that just radiated off the screen. Films like Till the End of Time, in 1946, cemented his status as a romantic lead, exactly the kind of dependable, soft-spoken hero that post-war America was looking for. But it was in 1951 that he landed the role that would define his career and make him a household name. As the lead in the TV series The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok, Guy Madison became an icon. For 7 years, from 1951 to 1958, he was the legendary U.S. Marshal with his trusty sidekick Jingles, played by Andy Devine, by his side. The show was a massive hit. Madison's face was on lunchboxes, comic books, and cereal boxes. He was the brave, fair, and kind cowboy hero that kids looked up to and adults admired. To the world, Guy Madison was Wild Bill Hickok, strong, righteous, and completely, unshakably masculine. This image was everything, and the studios worked around the clock to protect it. In an era before the internet and 24/7 news, a star's public persona was a fortress. Gossip columnists like Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons held all the power. They could make a career with a kind word or ruin it with a single scandalous whisper. For a male heartthrob like Madison, projecting an image as a straight-arrow ladies' man wasn't just recommended, it was required. To keep up appearances, his personal life was presented as a string of traditional high-profile romances. In 1949, he married the beautiful and talented actress Gail Russell. On paper, they were the perfect Hollywood couple, young, gorgeous, and famous. But the marriage was rocky from the very beginning, with the couple separating for the first time just 6 months in. Russell was a deeply sensitive woman who struggled with severe anxiety and a tragic battle with alcoholism, problems that were only made worse by the pressures of Hollywood. Madison reportedly tried to support her, but their relationship was turbulent and eventually fell apart. They divorced in October 1954. He would later say of their time together, "I loved Gail. Don't think I'm laying all the blame on Gail. I know I'm not the easiest man in the world to live with." Just weeks after the divorce was final, Madison married again, this time to actress Sheila Connolly. With Sheila, he had 3 daughters, Bridget, Erin, and Dolly, and by all accounts, he loved being a father. He also had a son, Robert, from another relationship. This second marriage presented a perfect picture of domestic bliss, the family, man behind the Western hero. But this marriage also ended in divorce in 1963, with the strains of his career and constant travel being named as factors. Publicly, Guy Madison was the devoted husband and father. He was the picture of the 1950s ideal, but according to the stories that would bubble to the surface decades later, this public life was just a performance. The real story, the one he could never tell, was supposedly one of deep loneliness, constant fear, and a secret romantic life that broke every rule of the world he lived in. The legend says that behind the facade of his marriages and his on-screen heroism, Madison was navigating a hidden world of clandestine relationships with other men. To get why someone like Guy Madison was under so much pressure, you have to understand the system that ran old Hollywood with an iron fist. From the 1930s to the late 1960s, the industry was governed by the Motion Picture Production Code, better known as the Hays Code. This set of moral guidelines was incredibly strict, dictating what could and couldn't be shown or even hinted at on screen. But its power went way beyond the movie set. It seeped into the personal lives of the stars themselves. The code was designed to clean up Hollywood after a series of public scandals in the 1920s. It banned any depiction of what it called moral turpitude, and homosexuality was right at the top of that list. It was seen as a perversion, a topic so forbidden that even suggesting it could get a film banned and its actors blacklisted. This created a climate of extreme paranoia. Studio heads basically owned their actors, holding them to strict morality, clauses in their contracts. An actor's private life was considered studio property, something to be managed, manipulated, and if needed, completely fabricated to protect the brand. For gay and bisexual actors, this system was a beautiful prison. Their careers and their livelihoods depended on their ability to perform heterosexuality 24/7. Getting caught meant total ruin, not just losing a contract, but public shame, humiliation, and the end of any hope of ever working in town again. The studios, with their powerful publicity machines, became experts in managing perception. They set up photo ops, planted stories in fan magazines, and most famously, arranged lavender marriages. A lavender marriage was a marriage of convenience, a sham union designed to present a straight front and shut down any rumors about a star's sexuality. These were often arranged between a gay actor and a lesbian actress, or a gay star and a woman willing to play the part of a loving wife for money, a career boost, or simply to protect a friend. Now let's be clear. There is no definitive proof that Guy Madison's marriages were lavender arrangements, but the speculation has stuck around for decades, especially about his troubled marriage to Gail Russell. Given Russell's own well-known struggles, some have wondered if the marriage was a desperate move by the studio to provide a cover for both stars, whatever their secrets might have been. Living this double life took a terrible psychological toll. Actors were always on edge, terrified of being in the wrong place with the wrong person. A stray glance, a touch that lingered too long, a stolen letter, any of it could be used as blackmail. This fear created a profound sense of isolation. Stars like Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter, and Anthony Perkins all lived under this crushing weight, forced to project an image of carefree, all-American masculinity while privately struggling with who they were. They were some of the most famous people on the planet, yet they were deeply alone, unable to share their real selves with the world that worshipped them. It was in this suffocating world that Guy Madison allegedly had his secret affairs. The stories that have come out, mostly from unverified biographies and posthumous accounts, paint a picture of a man navigating a dangerous landscape of Forby. Psycho. Perkins was known for his nervous energy and deep anxieties, which were only amplified by the stress of being a closeted man in Hollywood. The alleged connection between him and Madison is described as brief, intense, and soaked in paranoia. The story claims Perkins was always haunted, always looking over his shoulder, unable to relax even with someone who understood the risks. Their supposed affair was a portrait of shared fear, but maybe the most poignant relationship in the unverified narrative of Guy Madison's secret life was with Rock Hudson. Of all the men, Hudson's life mirrored Madison's most closely. Both were discovered by Agent Henry Wilson. Both were sold to the public as perfect examples of American masculinity, and both were forced to live a lie. Hudson was a giant star, the handsome, gentle hero of romantic comedies. The legend suggests their connection was one of true equals, two men who understood each other's burdens without saying a word. These accounts claim they stole moments of happiness together, like weekends away in Big Bear or quiet dinners at Hudson's home. These were tiny islands of normalcy in a life of performance. Their alleged relationship was defined by this split, the joy of their connection and the deep sadness of knowing it could never see the light of day. When Rock Hudson's death from AIDS-related complications in 1985 forced the world to confront the reality of his hidden life, it cast a long, tragic shadow back over the secrets so many had been forced to keep. Living a lie eats away at you. For the men and women of old Hollywood forced to hide their true selves, the glamour and money were often poisoned by a constant, nagging anxiety. The price of silence wasn't paid in dollars, but in peace of mind, in real relationships, and in the simple freedom to be yourself. Guy Madison's alleged story, whether the details are true or not, is a powerful symbol of this heavy human cost. Just imagine the daily reality. Every interview is a minefield. Every question about your love life is a test of how well you can act. Fan magazines print stories about your ideal woman, while the person you actually care about has to remain invisible. Every staged photo op with a female co-star was another brick in the wall of the prison you were building around yourself. The performance wasn't on screen, it was in everyday life. The fear was constant. There was the fear of being exposed, of seeing a career you'd spent years building get torched overnight by a single headline. There was the fear of blackmail, a very real threat in a town full of desperate people and big secrets. And then there was the deeper, more personal fear of just being alone. How do you build a meaningful relationship when it has to exist entirely in secret? How do you find real intimacy in a world of stolen glances and coded conversations? These hidden relationships were fragile by nature. They existed in the stolen hours between film shoots, in secluded homes, or in quiet vacation spots. There were no public dates, no holding hands on the street, no introducing your partner to your family. This forced invisibility could easily breed resentment and insecurity, making it almost impossible for love to survive. To protect the public image, these secret relationships often had to be sacrificed. Marriages of convenience were arranged. Public girlfriends were found, and the real connections were cut, leaving behind nothing but heartbreak. The psychological toll was enormous. Many stars from that era suffered from depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, issues that were no doubt made worse by the stress of living a double life. Gail Russell's tragic battle with alcoholism is a well-documented part of Hollywood history, and it's impossible to separate her pain from the oppressive environment she lived in. For men like Guy Madison, Rock Hudson, and Anthony Perkins, the burden of being a symbol of rugged masculinity while hiding a core part of their identity must have been an incredible weight to carry. The narrative of Madison's late-life confession suggests his decision to finally speak, or rather, the legend of him speaking, wasn't about causing a scandal. It was about honoring the truth of his life and the reality of the men he cared for. It was an attempt to reclaim a history that had been erased, to give names and faces to the loves that were pushed into the shadows. The story, whether Madison ever told it or not, resonates because it's not just about secrets and lies. It's about the fundamental human need for connection and the quiet acts of courage against a system designed to crush it. The hidden history of Hollywood is packed with stories of courage, heartbreak, and resilience that are only now being told. These are more than just celebrity gossip. They're vital pieces of our cultural history, reminding us of the real human lives behind the legends. If you find these untold stories as fascinating and important as we do, make sure you subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into Hollywood's forgotten past. Click that bell icon so you never miss a video, and let us know in the comments which old Hollywood star's secret history you'd like us to explore next. Your support helps us keep bringing these powerful stories out of the shadows. Guy Madison passed away on February 6, 1996, at the age of 74. He died of emphysema, spending his final years in the quiet desert of Palm Springs, a world away from the Hollywood that made him a star. His public legacy is solid: the handsome face of Wild Bill Hickok, a Golden Globe winner, and 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He'll always be a beloved figure for fans of classic westerns, a symbol of a bygone era. But alongside that, public legacy, another much more complicated story, has taken hold. The tale of his secret life and his alleged late-life confession about Ramon Novarro, Tyrone Power, Anthony Perkins, and Rock Hudson has become a persistent piece of Hollywood mythology. And it's worth saying one last time because it's that important. There is no credible, verifiable evidence for these claims. There's no authenticated memoir, no confirmed interview, no on-the-record statement from Madison. The narrative is a patchwork of rumor, speculation, and stories from sensationalized books that feed a public hungry for secrets. So how do we square these two versions of Guy Madison, the clean-cut cowboy hero and the tormented, closeted man of Hollywood legend? Maybe the answer is that we don't have to choose one. We can acknowledge the facts of his successful career while also understanding why the legend of his secret life is so powerful. The story of Guy Madison's alleged affairs persists because it speaks to a larger, undeniable truth about old Hollywood. It gives a face and a name to the silent suffering of countless people who had to sacrifice their identities for their careers. Whether or not Madison himself had these specific relationships, many others lived this reality. The fear, the secrecy, the stolen moments of joy, and the profound emotional cost. That was the truth for a hidden generation of LGBTQ+ artists. In the end, the legend of Guy Madison's confession is more than just gossip. It's become a form of historical reclamation. It's a story that insists on remembering what the studio system tried so hard to make the world forget, that behind the screen's perfect illusions were real, complex human beings who loved and yearned and hurt, just like the rest of us. The specific truth of one man's life may be lost to time and speculation, but the larger truth his story represents, of the price of silence and the resilience of the human heart, will never fade away.